So if you guys could do that, thank you. If not, I understand. Have a good one. So, the West. With the Rockets now pretty firmly as the 11th seed, we have the 10 teams that are going to be at least in the play-in or up. We won't know the playoffs until play-in, obviously, but we have a pretty firm grasp on like who the top 4 or 5 seeds are going to be, and then who the rest of the play-ins are going to be. So today I wanted to go through each of these teams and give my thoughts on who their X factors could be. And to me, X factor means who could swing a series by playing very well or very poorly, right? So like it will vary a little bit depending on the team I'm talking about. For like example, the first team I'm going to talk about is the Thunder. To me, they would have 2 different X factors depending on if they were to play very well or very poorly. Because to me, Josh Giddey is the one that stands out the most as the easiest to point out. If with how he's been playing, he is not going to be guarded super closely in the postseason. He is one of those players that teams are content to let score on them. He is being guarded like Ben Simmons, and not even like prime Ben Simmons. We're talking modern day Ben Simmons, back surgery Ben Simmons, that sort of non-factor on offense. Like, sure, he can pass, but what are you going to do besides that? Because I'm a Nuggets fan, right? I watched Facu Campazzo. Facu was a good passer, but he was a liability because he was someone who could not create his own shot, his own drives to the rim. He wasn't a threat outside of his passing. And eventually teams are going to catch on that, oh, you're only trying to pass. We'll let you pass, play 4-on-5 basically. So Josh Giddey needs to, be able to knock down the threes that he gets because he's going to get a bunch of open threes. And he needs to be able to defend well. And I don't really have faith in him to do either of those. If he does play well, that's a big swing for the Thunder. And if he plays poorly, he probably won't be able to close games. And I would personally, if it were me who was Mark Daigneault, I wouldn't be starting him in the first place. I'd start like Cason Wallace or the other X factor potentially, Aaron Wiggins. Now, if you are also a listener of the Media Pass, which you should be if you're not, they're a great podcast, but one of the co-hosts is Alex Hoops. He's a friend of mine, so I talk with him a good amount, and he has always been a Aaron Wiggins guy, pointing out to me, hey, Aaron Wiggins is really good. He doesn't play a ton, but he's really efficient. He is a really good defender. He can create his own shot. He can play off ball. If he fills in for Josh Giddey, I think that's a good swing for the Thunder. So that's my thoughts on the Thunder. On to the next team. The next team I'll cover is the Nuggets. I think that their X factor is either going to be Reggie Jackson or Peyton Watson. I can't really decide between the two. I think Peyton Watson is more likely to not play deeper into the playoffs. Don't get me wrong. Love Peyton Watson. Rooting for the guy. He seems like a great guy. And also, he's super fun to watch. His defensive prowess is incredible. He's gotten more comfortable on the ball, and on a team where they are pretty lacking in shot creators and people who can handle the ball, it's a welcome addition. But I think the person more capable of swinging a series by having a good game or two is Reggie Jackson, because not only is he someone who has done that before, right, with the Clippers like a few years back, which he is a different player now than he was a few years ago. He's not as good. I'm not trying to say he's going to replicate that run, but he does have a history of being a decent playoff performer. If he can, have a 20-point game off the bench in a series, that's a big swing, because the Nuggets aren't really expecting to have good bench production this postseason, I'd assume. They don't have a Bruce Brown this time around, They don't have someone who is basically a sixth starter. They have starters and they have bench players. The closest they're getting to a Bruce Brown is Christian Brown, but he's going to be a defensive sub. He is not someone who's super impactful offensively. He can knock down a corner three, he's good at that, but outside of that, there's not really someone who is a quote-unquote sixth starter. So to me, Reggie Jackson potentially putting up a 20-point game would be huge, and if he struggles, then that puts a lot more pressure on the starters to perform, which they have, historically speaking, performed well. I expect them to keep that up, but it does put more pressure on the Jokic minutes, right? Because you just need to tread water in the non-Jokic minutes. You're going to win the Jokic minutes probably. but will Reggie Jackson be able to, anchor that bench unit? Will Peyton Watson be able to, have his three drop enough to play in the playoffs more than, past the second round? We will see. For the Timberwolves, I'm going to go with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I think that he has been really, really good this season, like potentially all defensive team sort of defender, and has knocked down a lot of his three-pointers this season. He is currently shooting 40% on the year and has been a really reliable option there. However, in years past, he shot 37% for them last season, and before last season, he was he was around a 35% shooter. And I believe he is more of that 40% three-point shooter now than he was. And in the postseason last year, he did shoot 39%. But it's going to be a question for him and Jaden McDaniels of how good are you going to be off the ball? How good are you going to be shooting the ball to allow the Timberwolves to be as good defensively as they are? Because those two people are very key to their defense, right? It obviously starts with Rudy Gobert, but Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker are both incredibly important defenders, and making sure that they're tenable offensively is going to be incredibly important for the Timberwolves in the postseason. Okay, next is going to be the Clippers, and my pick is Russ. Russell Westbrook has been impactful this season. He's important to the Clippers' success, largely, and with the Clippers looking as lackluster as they have recently, they need someone who will be a spark plug for them. They need someone who will provide them with energy, and just really increase their rate of play, their pace, and someone who can just be a right hook, right? If someone team tries to hit them with a jab, they need a hook, right? They need a counter. And I think Russ is a solid option there, because they're going to be pinpointing Harden, Kawhi, PG as like the big three, because that is the big three. You need a fourth guy, and Russ did that for them well last postseason. He didn't play with the big three healthy, so it was mainly just the Russ show, but he averaged 23.5 points. Didn't do it too efficiently. He was only shooting 41% from the field, but he's never been that efficient historically, so I'm not surprised there. The swing factor, though, for him is he going to be that Russ that we saw last season, or is he going to be the one that we saw with, when he was with Washington, where he shot 33% from the field and didn't exactly play too efficiently? He's not probably going to shoot the best from the field, but it's going to be important that he at least doesn't shoot them out of games. He'll need to find a balance between pushing the rock and really pushing forward this team and dialing it back to the point where he's not shooting them out of games. So for those reasons, it's Russ for me. For the Mavericks, I'm going to go with Dante Exum, someone who I was not expecting to be a contributor this season, and I was really surprised when they signed him. But so far, he's played in 51 games for them, averaging about 20 minutes a game, and he has been really, really good for them. He has been a rock-solid defender and is shooting 50% from three this season, 5-0. That is a lot better than anyone rightfully would have expected from him. The season he played last before the NBA, it was only 6 games, but he shot 18% from three. The year before that was 35. The year before that was 29. It is ridiculous how good of a shooter he has been now. But the questions that I have is can he provide the Mavericks with a reliable ball handler, off-ball player, someone who can fill in for, 10 minutes for Luka and Kyrie? When Luka comes off, can he help be the second guard to Kyrie or to Tim Hardaway, depending on who is the ball handler, subbed in at that time? Can he help be the Kyrie to Luka when he is off the floor? Don't know how much I trust him to fill in those specific roles. I don't think that'll be his role in those lineups, but I'm just saying can he be the second guard, right? Can he be productive in that role? And I think so. I would bet on it, and I chose him instead of Tim Hardaway because I feel like we all know what Tim Hardaway is going to be, right? He's going to put up 15 to 17 points in the postseason, shoot around 40 to 42% from the field, and he'll have big buckets at some points and have stinkers at others. It really depends, so that's my X factor for the Mavericks. For the Suns, who are currently the 6th seed, I'm going to go with Bradley Beal. He needs to be better than he has been for them. He was supposed to be the 3rd star for them, and, he has been probably their 3rd or 4th best player, maybe fifth, depending on where you put Yusuf Nurkic and Grayson Allen. But he should not be in the discussions of fourth or third or fifth. He should be definitively the third guy, right? That's what you traded for him for. That's what you mortgaged your future for. And they mortgaged their future to be like a 6 or a 7 seed. And it'll only get worse from here, in my opinion. But Bradley Beal has been relatively efficient, 17 point per game scorer, 5 assists. However, the Suns have been worse with him on the floor this year than with him off. He is a negative 2.1 on-off differential. The offense is slightly worse with him on the floor at negative 0.5. I think a lot of that is due to just having too many mouths to feed potentially on the floor at the same time. If he is on the floor with Book and KD at the same time, you're kind of overloading on offense, in my opinion, especially considering sometimes like Grayson Allen is in at the same time, and then Nurkic has been really good defensively this season, so I'm not really going to include him in that lineup. But then defense gets it gets worse with him on the floor. 1.6 points per possession worse, and that is 1.6 points per 100 possession. Sorry, that is a pretty significant margin. He's just not a good defender, and they need him to be better on that end if they want to advance from a first-round series. Right now, they would be matching up with the Thunder, which, hey, that's a KD versus old team in the postseason. That's a pretty fun narrative, But do you really trust the Suns in a 7-game series against the Thunder? Personally, I'd take the Thunder pretty easily there. I had a hard time deciding on just one for the Pelicans, so I'm just going to toss a few names out there, and they are all for pretty similar reasons. Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, and Dyson Daniels are all players that I think fit a similar mold for what the Pelicans want them to do this postseason, if they do get playing time. In the case of Dyson Daniels, the other two are definitely going to get playing time. But Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Dyson Daniels, all excellent defenders, right? Herb Jones is probably the best non-big defender in the league, or at least is up there, like top 3. Trey Murphy is a very solid defender, and Dyson Daniels is a great point of attack defender. And then they want, Herb Jones and Trey Murphy to knock down threes. Dyson Daniels is not a great three-point shooter, right? He doesn't shoot well. He's 32% three-point shooter. So can he provide enough outside of his three-point shooting to justify playing him is really the question there. This season he's shot well on mid-range shots, 32 of 65, most of that coming from like floater range rather than, long mid-range shots, but he does have some good touch from the mid-range. So can he kind of leverage that to get himself on the floor more? For Herb Jones, can he keep up the shooting that he has this season? Because it is a huge leap for him. He did not shoot well in seasons past, but this season has become a really reliable knockdown shooter. And it's just a question of whether that lives up in the postseason, because he is going to likely get open jumpers. Even though he's shooting 43% this season, teams are going to dare him to shoot. Can he make them pay for that? Can he have games where he knocks down 3 or 4? If yes, then I think the Pelicans are going to probably progress past the first round. I wouldn't be shocked at that. The next team is the Lakers, and for me, it's pretty easily D'Angelo Russell. This season, D'Lo has been great for them, right? He's been a third option that is reliable. He has knocked down his shots. He has finished at the rim. He has provided a great outlet for LeBron and AD. But last postseason, we all saw what happened. He got benched because he could not play on a postseason floor reliably well. And if that's the case, the Lakers are not going to probably go far this season, right? The West is better this postseason. It has more teams that can beat them. And it was kind of lucky that they even got to the Western Conference Finals last season, and they got swept by the Nuggets. They're not getting close to beating the Nuggets in a postseason series. They're not getting close to beating the Timberwolves, Thunder, without a good series from D'Angelo Russell, probably a great series from D'Angelo Russell. So if they really want to advance, they need D'Angelo Russell to play well. For me, with the Kings, it is going to be both Keegan Murray and Harrison Barnes, because with the Kings having the injuries to Kevin Huerter and Malik Monk recently, they have a shot creation deficit, right? They need people to make up for the shot creation that Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter provided. Can these two come in and provide that? Can Keegan Murray reliably create his own shot while still putting in the effort he does defensively? Can he still be a good defender, sometimes a great defender, while still, getting up more shots? Can Harrison Barnes just be a good player, right? Like, can he maybe create his own shots a few times a game. Those are going to be the questions facing the Kings. I don't know if they're even going to make it out of the play-in, but if they make it to the first round, if they want to make it a interesting series in the slightest, they're going to need to have those two create shots. And then last and almost certainly least, the Warriors. It's going to be Klay Thompson for me. He has been better since coming off the bench, but he is still not nearly the player he was in his prime. I mean, I can't blame him. He's 34 years old, and he's coming off of an Achilles tear, I think, and an ACL thing. So, I don't blame him for not being the player he used to be, but the defense is really bad. He is not a good lateral mover anymore, and the Warriors also just struggle more on defense with him on the floor. The defense gets 4.5 points per 100 possessions worse when he is on the floor. And, I mean, his shot making is not really in question. He's shooting worse than he has in seasons past, yeah, but he's still a 40% three-point shooter. And at the end of the day, he's Klay Thompson. He has been here. He has done this many times. But the defense is a big question mark to me. So that rounds out the list of, X factors for all 10 teams. I hope you guys liked this. I'm going to make an Eastern version of this video in probably a couple of days, maybe tomorrow if I have nothing to talk about. Yeah, so remember, like, subscribe, comment. I need to get monetized. Watch my videos as you sleep, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, have a good one.